Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. The incident of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, and the sorcerer happened in the time of Pharaoh. You must have heard the name of Egypt. It was once ruled by shepherd kings. These people were originally from Syria and Palestine, and their occupation was herding. When Egypt was in the midst of a civil war, people took advantage of the situation and occupied Egypt and established their rule. In those days, they worshipped gods and goddesses. Among their gods, sun was considered the greatest. The king considered Pharaoh to be the incarnation of the sun, so he was also worshipped. Egyptians were two polytheists. At that time, there was a nation in Egypt known as Children of Israel. Israel was in fact the name given to Hazrat Yaqub A.S. Therefore, their descendants are also called the children of Israel. They lived in the area of Palestine called Canaan. He had 7 sons, one of whom was Joseph, known as Hazrat Yusuf A.S., whom his brothers looked upon with great envy. One day, they took permission from his father to take Hazrat Yusuf A.S. with him under the pretext of hunting and threw him in dark deep well along the way. But no calamity befalls him whom Allah safeguards. Hence, by the grace and might of Allah, he sent a caravan passing by who stopped to draw water from the well and instead found Hazrat Yusuf A.S. And after being sold in various hands, he reached a senior Egyptian government official. He kept him in his home with great honor until his wife falsely slandered Prophet Yusuf A.S. and sent him to prison. All the people in the prison and the prisoner treated him with great respect because they knew that Hazrat Yusuf A.S. was a very noble and respectable person. In the same era, the king of Egypt had a strange dream, but nobody in the court could interpret his dream. A prisoner who was recently released told that a good man in the prison, Hazrat Yusuf A.S., can tell the meaning of the dream. Therefore, Hazrat Yusuf A.S. was immediately called to the court and told the dream. Hazrat Yusuf A.S. explained the meaning of the dream, that for 7 years in a row there would be drought in the country, and then for 7 years there will be prosperity in this country. He also told the king a way to escape from this drought. This made it clear to the king that was no one in the whole country wiser than Hazrat Yusuf A.S. The king also learned that he was completely innocent and had been imprisoned in an incompetent manner. So upon his request, he was placed on a higher designation in the court. Thanks to the good management of Hazrat Yusuf A.S., in the 7 years of drought, there was abundance of crops to the point that even neighboring countries were provided crops in affordable rates. Hazrat Yusuf A.s. brothers often came to Egypt from Canaan to buy grain. Eventually, Hazrat Yusuf A.s. called his whole family to Egypt. In those days, the foundation of Egypt was Ams. The remains of it are still found some 14 miles to the south of Cairo. Hazrat Yusuf A.s. settled his family on the advice of Shah Misr in a lush area to the north of the throne called Cheshin. Let me tell you here that the Egyptians were true polytheists, but the children of Israel were followers of the religion which they inherited from Abraham, that is, Hazrat Ibrahim a.s. They worshipped one God, obeyed the messenger of God, and believed that one day they would have to appear before God and give an account of the deeds of this world's life. In other words, understand that the children of Israel were Muslims of that time, and Egyptians were non-believers, polytheists. About 100 years after the death of Prophet Yusuf A.S., a national movement against the shepherd king began. Egyptians overthrew the government of foreign kings and once again took over the government. The Egyptians were always afraid that the children of Israel would conspire with the enemy of the country and invade Egypt. So they began to oppress and humiliate the Israelis in every possible way, and a campaign was launched against them. They were evicted from their houses and fertile land. They were removed from high positions in the government. The doors of honorable employment were closed to them. They were forced to work, and if they were allowed to be given wages, it was very less. They used to bake bricks for buildings and worked hard in the fields. They were appointed overseers who forcefully made them work and would give them painful punishments for the slightest negligence. They were treated like slaves and were subjected to immense cruelty, and they were allowed to live a life of slavery and humiliation in Egypt. In order to decrease the population of children of Israel, a policy was adopted that their male borns were to be killed. They let the women live so that they are forced to be kept as slaves of the countrymen, and gradually the generation of the Israelis came to an end. An astrologer at Pharaoh's court revealed that a boy would be born in Israel who would overthrow his government. To avoid this danger, Pharaoh decreed that any boy born to the children of Israel should be killed immediately. Whatever the reason, this cruel verdict was issued and it was strictly enforced. Pharaoh had women who acted as his spies, who roamed around in Israeli settlements and would inform the government of any male births and had them killed. During that time, a boy was born into an Israeli family who is remembered by the world as Moses, known as Hazrat Musa A.S. His elder brother, Hazrat Haron A.S., was born before the verdict was issued. That's why he survived. But the life of Hazrat Musa A.S. was in danger at all times. His mother was always worried that if Pharaoh's men found out, things would get worse. She remained patient, but in the end she got nervous due to the activities of the spy women. She was able to keep her sons hidden for almost 3 months after the birth of Moses a.s. and raised them with love. After this, Allah Almighty commanded her to breastfeed her beloved son with contentment. However, when the secret is revealed and you feel there is danger, place Hazrat Musa a.s. into river Nile without fear. The waves of the river will take him to a certain place and leave him on the shore, and then he will be picked up by the one who is my enemy and is also the enemy of this child, but he won't be able to hurt him even in the slightest. In fact, we will return him to you and then grant him prophethood. So now his mother decided to hand him over to the river Nile as per the order of Allah Almighty. She made a basket of thistles and covered it with soil so that water does not get embedded in it. Then she placed her beloved son into the basket and put in the river Nile and let him go under the protection of Allah Almighty. After placing her son into the river, she remained restless. As after all he was her son. So upon getting a sign from Allah, she asked her daughter to follow the basket along the shore without anybody finding out, and keep an eye on Hazrat Musa a.s.
لك الوجود يا شريك